Music is an intrinsic part of cinema. Whether it's the perfect opening anthem or a moving score at a key dramatic moment, soundtracks are a pretty significant element of a film. Few have interwoven music into the fabric of their work quite like Edgar Wright. Most notably, his new quasi-musical heist film Baby Driver is specifically synced up to a killer playlist with character moments, action beats, and narrative pacing precisely matched up to a particular song for that moment. If you followed Wright's work at all, however, Baby Driver isn't all that surprising, really. You don't have to dig too deep into his past films to see examples that are essentially predictive of his Baby Project, a film he's been working on since he was in his early 20s before he even gained greater renown for Shaun of the Dead. You can get a sense of how he uses music as a bit of a gag and to push a narrative point within the first 10 minutes of Spaced, the beloved BBC show that is basically a nerdy version of Friends, if, Friends were actually good and worthwhile. Tim, played by longtime friend and collaborator Simon Pegg, is kicked out of his apartment after his girlfriend dumps him. He meets Daisy at a cafe, who is in an identical situation. Wright displays his fondness for interesting scene and time transitions as the two look over the newspaper as they search for available flats. Getting to Know You from The King and I plays over a brief panning montage to show that time has passed and the two are, getting to know each other.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you, getting to like you, getting to hope you like me.
Hi. How's it going?
Same as always.
That bad, huh?
It's just one example of Wright using the lyrics of a song to match up to the visuals. As a director, he isn't often interested in using stale, stiff shots that over-explain things. It's a bit of a running joke that he enjoys quick cuts, as we've seen in both Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, and with his penchant for unique editing and fast-paced visual information, the music can actually help relay that information more efficiently, as more is put into each section. It isn't just visuals, it's also audio. Episode 6 of Spaced, Epiphanies, is essentially the true predecessor to everything that culminated in Baby Driver's structure around its soundtrack. The cold opening features a dream flashback sequence in which Brian recalls a time out at the club. Everyone is dancing the Dexys Midnight Runners Come on Eileen except for him. After the song's build-up, he joins in and immediately knocks into somebody's drink, knocking it out of their hand by accident, resulting in an angry drunkard punching him.
Ryan, come on, you Eileen to Ryan.
The cuts here match the song's build-up before resulting in the dramatic and comedic result. This episode also premieres Tyres, Tim's career friend who is a huge fan of clubbing. He speaks so fast as to go into rhythm with the club music that plays over him. Tyres also has the unique ability to hear a dance tune out of everything. Within minutes of entering their apartment, he is rocking out to the telephone ringing, water being poured, and the dog chewing.
Hello?
This episode concludes with everyone going out to a nightclub and dancing, complete with gags to the beat and character arc resolutions occurring to the house music. This all comes back in Season 2 with the episode Help. Again featuring Tyres, Tim is desperately trying to stop him from delivering his portfolio to a comic book publisher. Tyres, of course, is absorbed in his music, and Wright uses this to time the dramatic action of Tim sprinting to catch him. It's a small example of an early action sequence timed to the music, but it highlights his affinity for doing such things, and his penchant for quick editing to match it.
Tyres!
I bet you, Timmy lad.
It similarly takes all of about 5 minutes before we see Wright's love of visual musical synchronization in his debut theatrical film Shaun of the Dead. After a really good opening gag in which he proves exceptional at visual comedy, crafting jokes around the frame, we get into the opening title sequence. A series of shots invoking imagery of metaphorical zombies coincides with Eye Monster's track The Blue Wrath. An army of young drones, earbuds in and minds tuned out, march in rhythm, just as we see a young boy juggling a soccer ball, with each kick also matching the beat. Though the entire film isn't like this, minus one really great scene much later, this credit sequence is built a bit like a musical number. With hindsight, it's easy to see that Baby Driver had been an idea kicking around Edgar Wright's head well before even Shaun of the Dead. Being more involved in the comedic persuasion of film, Wright uses the music for some pretty good gags. Shaun of the Dead features two of the best in any of his works. Take, for instance, when Sean and Ed leave the Winchester after Sean has been dumped. Drunk, they exit the pub singing Grandmaster Flash's White Lines.
Vision, dreams of passion.
Going through my mind, and all the while I think of you.
Acting like your average inebriated fools, they unknowingly find a zombie shuffling towards them, groaning. So, they sing the bass line of the song, letting the groan take over in the break. It's a pretty funny moment reminiscent of Young Frankenstein's Puttin' on the Ritz sequence.
What's he do? Just say bass. Or freeze.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?
And then, of course, there's the scene wherein the group must defend themselves from the zombie bartender while Queen's Don't Stop Me Now blasts from the jukebox. All of their strikes occur in rhythm and become part of the song itself.
Hey, John, it's time at the bar.
This extends to the lights that David struggles to set, which flash on and on like a dance club scene. And Diana and Sean's mother even swinging to it all. This scene is probably the most obvious predecessor to Baby Driver and the most musical moment in any Edgar Wright piece prior. And remember that scene from Space where Getting to Know You plays over a montage of two people meeting? A little on the nose and obvious, right? Well, Hot Fuzz does something similar, but a little bit more subtly. On his morning jog, Sergeant Nicholas Angel is getting accustomed to the new area. Townsfolk all wave and seem awfully interested in him. This all occurs while the Village Green Preservation Society by the Kinks plays.
We are the Village Green Preservation Society. Morning, Sergeant. God save the old duck for the Village. Morning, Sergeant. We are the best of the
Morning, Sergeant.
Appreciation Society. God save Geordie Gems with all the Village.
Lock me up.
The song itself provides a subtle clue that something might be amiss here. The song is basically about protecting the old ways, and it's just tonally a bizarre song. It's a pleasant melody, and its lyrics and vocal inflection come off a little bit jarring. It sounds like The Town, fake and putting on a show for the sergeant, but covering something more insidious underneath. Additionally, you can hear Dire Straits' Romeo and Juliet playing over the radio as Skinner stops to speak to Sergeant Angel at the scene of the car collision. The background joke here, of course, is that the people killed were actors who just the night before performed a horrendous rendition of the Shakespeare play. This is a musical blink-and-you-miss-it type gag.
How it is. News travels fast.
I love struck Romeo, sing the streets of very many.
Similarly, he's playing Fire by The Crazy World of Arthur Brown after Mr. Merchant dies in an explosion. His body burnt to a crisp. This one might be a little bit more obvious than the Romeo and Juliet situation because there's no dialogue between Skinner and Sergeant Angel, and also the film really wants you to believe that Skinner is the killer, so it might seem a little bit more prominent in that moment. And of course you can hear John Spencer's influence on Edgar Wright here. Talking about Baby Driver, Wright has said that he got the basic idea of a car chase listening to the John Spencer blues explosion, which kicks off that film. For Hot Fuzz, Wright got an original track made by John Spencer and the Elegant Trio, which he cuts the perp roundup and mugshot scenes to.
You really want to process all this lot?
My pen's on your head. Not a problem.
Of course, the most obvious installment showcasing Edgar Wright's affinity for blending music with film is the cult classic Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This comic book adaptation centers on a character in a band, so music was always going to play a big role. More than that, music is central to the action. While Scott Pilgrim must fight Ramona's exes in order to date her, his band, the Sex Bob-ombs, are competing in a battle of the bands that at times turns into a literal battle through music. Music is central to the bulk of the film, from the action to setting moods to giving a sense of the type of people these are. They're pretty indie Canadians, and the soundtrack matches that brilliantly. Wright also uses music to help with transitions. Scott Pilgrim features some of the quickest scene changes in any movie. Mostly it's done through visuals and fast cuts. However, look at the transition when Scott sees Ramona in the real world after he saw her in her dream.
Do you know that girl?
Scott! What? You only played one note for that entire song.
Garbage Truck, an original song for the film, blasts as he stares. As Ramona leaves, the bass line gets stuck on one note repeating. Close-up of Scott's face, which doesn't move from the frame even though the scene changes to band practice, where Stephen Stills, the talent, pops into frame to yell at him. We've changed locations and time, but the music is what blended those two moments together, as the bass got stuck because he's at practice spacing out. Wright uses songs a little on the nose here too, as he usually does. Just about a minute or two later, once Scott has learned who Ramona is, he searches for her through a crowded party. So what song to use? Well, why not I Heard Ramona Sing by Frank Black? Interestingly, the song blasts loudly over the scene when it's just the action of him stalking her, yet when he's in the party proper and talking to everyone else, the song continues exactly where it left off, but as the background music for the party itself. People at the party are listening to this song as well. It's not a major deal, but it's that attention to detail that sets Edgar Wright above most of the pack for quality filmmaking.
Dude, what? She's totally real. Who? Ramona Flowers. What? Dude, what do you know about Ramona Flowers?
All I know is that she is American.
American.
This also happens again when Gideon shows up, taking Ramona away, ultimately because he planted a mind control chip on her to keep her under his thumb. He shows up in a limo blasting the Rolling Stones Under My Thumb. This, like Skinner's Car and Hot Fuzz, are pretty on the nose, but what is unique is that he works the music into the real world around them. The people at the party are listening to Frank Black. Gideon Graves is listening to the Rolling Stones. Skinner is listening to Dire Straits. There are other unique ways Wright uses the music in Scott Pilgrim. When Sex Bob-omb battles Crash and the Boys, Stephen Stills panics while Kim is focused on their opponents and Scott is focused on Ramona and Knives at the same table. Most directors would turn down the music so you can hear the actor's line. Wright, recognizing how central the music is to the entire Scott Pilgrim experience, opts to leave it at the loud volume. It drowns out the dialogue, which he puts on screen as text. This prioritizes the music while also creating a visual comic book style matching the source material. The scene featuring Clash of Demon Head's performance is another example of how he will build around the music. First, there's a gag wherein Scott and Ramona realize that both of their exes are in the band and a fight is about to occur. Envy Adams sings "Oh Yeah" 3 times to open up the song before it fully dawns on our protagonist, who responds to it, "Oh no." And then, of course, Wright cuts the glares in the rhythm to the music.
Hello again, friend of a friend. I knew you were. Our common goal was waiting for the world to end. Now that the truth is just a rule that you command.
The entire scene culminates in a literal bass battle. And most obviously is when Sex Bob-omb fights the Katayanagi twins, in which both bands conjure up monsters to do battle to the music. Like with X number 3 Todd, the music isn't just central to the action, it is the action. The World's End does a bit of the same stuff we've seen in his previous films, but I love the way that he uses Soup Dragon's I'm Free when Gary King picks up his mates. First, it functions to help transition the scene. The music blasts over the film as he steps on the gas, and then the scene transitions to them later still driving. Inside the car, we hear the same song in a smooth transition to the radio.
I'm free to do what I want any old time.
Two Dragons. I remember this one.
I put this on a tape for you, didn't I?
Yeah, this is it.
This is the tape.
Yeah, look.
Where'd you find it?
It was in the tape player.
Like with Frank Black or the Rolling Stones and Scott Pilgrim or Dire Straits and Hot Fuzz, the music is both cinematic and occurring in the film's real world. Even more is how the song itself functions as an anthem for Gary. It's his personal creed, which he repeats a few times throughout the film, including the end when he rejects the network's offer to be assimilated into their galactic organization. And in this scene, it further highlights how stuck in the past he is. Gary feels his life has been nothing but a downward spiral since his teen years. He's stuck in the past and refuses to move forward. When Stephen Prince reminisces about how he put that song on a mixtape he made for his friend a long time ago, Gary informs him that it is that tape. It's such a great character moment, and it's built around the music. The double use of music occurs again later when the group learns about the robots that replace the townsfolk. Again, Wright uses a song that lyrically matches the plot of the movie as well as the scene itself. Drunk and unable to leave the town, the group decides to continue on to the next bar as Alabama's song Whiskey Bar by the Doors plays. This is a thing that he loves to do in general, and this time, the action is synced up to the tune. The friends walk in step, drink in rhythm, and speak on time to the song.
Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
Drinking beer pubs. Shall we?
This is essentially how we structured all of Baby Driver. Again, we can see 4 years prior just how much Edgar Wright loves to match the visuals to the music. Baby Driver is essentially the culmination of everything Wright has ever done with music and even quick editing. Gunshots serve as percussion, screeching tires or horns wailing, actors walk to the beat, every action and each scene is synced up to a particular track, while the whole film is constructed around a single playlist. As an individual piece of film, it's unlike most things you've seen. Unless you've been following Edgar Wright for a while, and then you might have guessed something like this was on the horizon.
Oh, let me check. Tequila.
Few have blended music and visuals together so meticulously and deliberately in such an effective fashion. Stylistically, it seems everything prior was just practice for Baby Driver. Overall, his films are indicative of a filmmaker obsessed with cinema, but he also might be just as at home at a record shop, because Edgar Wright loves music, and it enhances his already great films. I'm throwing this addendum in here because I completely forgot about this when I was writing and editing the main body of this piece, so I'm just quickly recording this. I'm going to just slap something together at the end of the video, so this is going to sound a lot less scripted. I realized, so when I did the Shaun of the Dead bit, I argued that the scene in the Winchester beating the zombie bartender to Queen's Don't Stop Me Now was his most musical moment prior to Baby Driver. I realized a few days later that Scott Pilgrim actually has a scene that literally turns into a musical number, with Ramona's ex, Matthew Patel, breaking into song and summoning his backup demon hipster chicks. I'm not sure how I forgot about that when I was writing and editing the main body of this, but here we are. I also wanted to add that I incorrectly stated that White Lines Don't Do It was by Grandmaster Flash. I forgot that song was itself deceptively labeled by the studio as Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel because the label hoped Grandmaster Flash's name would draw more people to it, but the track is all Melly Mel, so I think I added a text correction over it, but I just wanted to mention it here. So let me know, what is your favorite Edgar Wright film? What is your favorite song in an Edgar Wright film?